20 straight NCAA tournaments, 21 in program history, but never a stop in Los Angeles until now. Bulldogs taking the floor for their fourth consecutive Sweet 16 in an arena and a town known for hoops legends. Welcome to LA Live just outside Staples Center for KREM 2's Bulldog Madness Special with Evan Closky. I'm Darnay Tripp, and another year, another visit to the second weekend of the tournament for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and we could not have found a better city to be in than Los Angeles. As you mentioned, the first time we've been here, and it's important for us to get the pertinent information out of the way right out of the gates. Why we're here. We got a 7:07 tip against Florida State on TBS right here in the Staples Center. The big game, as I mentioned, tipping off around that 7 o'clock hour, so don't hold me to the 7:07. Gonzaga will take on Florida State for just the second time ever as a spot in the Elite Eight is on the line.
One big difference today from previous years, the practice day wasn't open to the public here in Los Angeles, and us in the media only allowed to view the first 15 minutes of each team's practice. Zags, of course, among the 4 teams that took the floor inside Staples Center for practice day here at the West Regional. Bulldogs, the only team in the Sweet 16 for a 4th straight season. Of course, they played on the biggest stage in college hoops last year. They were battle-tested in 2017, battle-tested last week to get here. That should help this week.
Playing in a national championship game does a lot for your confidence, does a lot for your teammates' confidence. So, you know, when we hit like adversity, we hit adversity in both of those 2 first-round games, and I think the experience kind of shows and kind of sticks out. So, you know, making it all the way last year, yeah, it paid great dividends for us.
The understanding that there's going to be a lot of adversity thrown at us, and we just got to hang with it. But I think we've shown that in the first 2 games. You know, we had teams make substantial runs at us in the second half, and we were able to hang in there and get her done.
As for the other bench, Florida State is in its first Sweet 16 since 2011, so the big dance is a totally new experience for this bunch. The Seminoles took it easy in front of the media. We saw stretching, free throws, and defensive drills. But besides that, not much to tell you from our end. FSU upset top-seeded Xavier to advance to Los Angeles, and the 9th seed is ready to keep its season alive and do some damage in the Staples Center.
We as a team, we're very excited to be here, especially before the season. Nobody know what we was about, and we all believe in we can make it here. And now we're here. We're just trying to make a run to get to the Final Four.
It's definitely a blessing to be here. I mean, a lot of people counted us out, said we weren't even going to make the tournament. So, I mean, we definitely play with a chip on our shoulder right now. All the guys love it. We're just trying to live in the moment.
Now, one of the best players for Florida State and one of the more inspiring players for Florida State is senior guard Brian Angola. The product out of North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene will suit up for the Seminoles in hoping that his senior season will not come to an end. And while Gonzaga fans do not have to root for the Seminoles, maybe, just maybe, they'll pull a little bit for Brian Angola. Taylor Vito has his story.
I'm sure thousands of you are rooting for the Zags this week, no doubt about that. But once you hear the story of this guy, Brian Angola, and his ties to the Inland Northwest, well, just the slightest bit of you, if not more, will be rooting for him. First off, he was born in Columbia. Speaking little English, he left his family behind to play high school basketball in Nevada. From there, it was on to North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene. There, he was a standout. That led Angola to transfer to Florida State, where he's clearly made an impact for the Seminoles. But before all that and a trip to the Sweet 16, it was honing his game at NIC.
It was the best time of my life, so I'm just grateful to be where I'm at right now.
Brian Angola is a fortunate guy, no doubt. He's helped take Florida State to the Sweet 16 and a matchup with the Zags. but it's the story of getting here that's impressive.
But it helped me a lot to be humble for where we are and where I come from.
Raised in Colombia, Angola left home to play basketball at Findlay Prep near Las Vegas. He was a teammate alongside future Zag great Nigel Williams-Goss. It was later that Angola would be playing in a tournament in Oregon and would catch the eyes of a coach from the inland Northwest.
He called me and said, "Hey, there's this kid, Brian Angola," and I said, "Wait a minute. What's his name? Brian Angola? I know that name."
Angola was on the radar of North Idaho College coach Corey Simmons already.
He plays well, he can defend, he rebounds the basketball, he can shoot it, does a little bit of everything.
Angola would help lead the Cardinals to an historic undefeated season and a run in the National JUCO Tournament. All this coming from a kid who spent more than half his life in another country not speaking English. Before he started at NIC, Angola's father passed away.
Once you get to know Brian, it's just amazing what type of a special kid he is. He's put in a lot of hard work.
Without a doubt, the Seminoles were glad to get their hands on Angola. This was the guy who left his family behind to pursue a dream in the States. But his love for family is without question. On senior day this year, Brian's mom flew from Columbia to Tallahassee to surprise her son.
She's flown in from Columbia.
When I saw her there, I just couldn't hold myself and I just started crying. I hadn't seen my mom in a long time.
It's just been a great journey to watch him.
Back in Coeur d'Alene, Coach Simmons has all the feels, especially since Angola will be playing a hometown team.
We're Zag fans, but we're Brian fans even more.
In Coeur d'Alene, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
Very nice to hear from Brian Angola, from Coach Simmons. Simmons will be in town for the game tomorrow. Also worth mentioning that Angola used to play pickup ball with a lot of players on this Gonzaga team. He said that that doesn't necessarily help you out in a game like this because pickup ball is a little bit different than what you see in a structured system. But nonetheless, he is very familiar with the squad he's going to face tomorrow night.
Some familiarity between two programs that don't have a whole lot of history. But Florida State's presence at this point in the tournament is an example of just how wild this big dance has been. They, of course, knocked out the top West seed Xavier. The 2-seed UNC is out. We had the first 16-1. Shout out UMBC for what they did against UVA. This tournament has some similarities to one 18 years ago. And, of course, Gonzaga was part of that one. Back in 2000, Zags factored into the madness for a second time, beating Louisville and St. John's to get to the second weekend. Now, the average seed of the Sweet 16 teams that year, 5.31. That's the exact average of the teams heading into this week's games as well. Now, typically, the last 18 years, the average seed was 4.45, so you see the difference spread out over nearly 2 decades. If you added up the seeds of the teams that made the Final Four in 2000, you get the number 22. By comparison, it was 12 last year. Gonzaga, of course, one of the 1 seeds. Back in 2000, 2 8 seeds made the Final Four with 3 upsets in the Elite 8. So no reason to believe that the craziness we saw last week will come to a screeching halt this week.
Yeah, and one of the things I like to look at is Ken Pomeroy probabilities. Now, if you look at Ken Pom probabilities, Gonzaga looking like a 40% chance to make it to the Final Four, a 26% chance to make the national championship game, and an 11% chance to win the whole thing. Now, as you mentioned, what do probabilities do in the middle of a game? Nothing. So we'll see what happens, but you know, it's nice to have trends like that to see if history is going to repeat itself.
Do you know the Ken Pom probability from the UMBC UVA game before tip-off? Because I'd like to know what that one was.
I think it was like 1.5% actually. It was, I mean, it's a heck of an upset.
All right, coming up next, we catch up with one of Gonzaga's biggest alums to talk old Zag memories and making it in Hollywood. Hello, welcome back to KREM's Bulldog Madness Special. LA, Evan, one of those towns people go to chase their dreams, and one proud Zag has done that with a ton of success. Eric Edelstein, best known as Big Ed, has chased his acting dreams here in Los Angeles. We caught up with him yesterday. One thing is clear, his passion for the Zags has not gone anywhere. He saw them make March Mad for the first time when he was a student 19 years ago, and he still has that same fire inside of him when he talks about his school. Well, clearly you're ready for the Zags this week.
Let's go. I wish Thursday was now.
How psyched were you when you saw it all play out?
I mean, you saw that bracket happen, and then, it's a dream. I can't believe it's here.
A little nervous, though, watching the first two. They didn't make it easy.
Completely nervous. Yeah, completely. And right now I'm nervous. I had trouble sleeping last night. Tonight it'll be even worse. Let's not even talk about Wednesday.
What comes to mind when you think about the Gonzaga days and the time that you had back then?
Well, it's so funny trying to explain to people that when I was there, I was a student TV broadcaster for GUTV. People had to watch us to watch the game. They didn't have a TV deal. And so my first year there, the games weren't even sold out. So the only people watching were like my grandaunt Lillian in the old folks home, 29th and Perry, and people that were too drunk to get to the games. That was it. And so to be able to be the broadcaster was the most fun thing ever, and to get involved with that team and watch that happen. It's kind of corny, but it kind of made you see dreams can come true. I mean, I was kind of adopted by that team, and I learned so many things that I apply now. Patience in basic, pass up good shots to get great ones. Coach Few always talks about adding value. And moving down here, I thought I would do comedy, and I've gone into this weird thing where I'll play, villains or stuff like that because of my size. And it's like adding value. Where do you need me? Well, maybe I'm not going to come in and score. Maybe I'm going to set some picks and rebound, but I'll do it. Why? Because I'm a Zag.
Yeah. You graduated in 2000?
2000. Should have been 99, but I took a victory lap.
And so when you moved to LA?
I moved to LA in 2001 with my buddy I met at Gonzaga, Scott Sayer, and we both got day jobs. I had every day job down here you could imagine. I got fired from every day job you could imagine.
Did you think stand-up comedy? Did you think acting?
When I moved down here, I probably thought stand-up comedy. And then I did open mics where it was, God bless, it was a lot of like homeless people and other stuff. And then also some of the stand-up comics are kind of mean. And so that was what I originally thought. And then I started doing improv, and that immediately felt like home, and I loved it. I mean, I always feel like the best improv training I ever had was announcing Gonzaga basketball. Because you have 2.5 hours to fill on GUTV. And then I remember when I was doing it, all the feedback I got was, oh, the stuff you're doing at halftime is really funny. Because I would interview, Mike Nielsen, Ryan Floyd, Matt Santangelo, Richie Fromm, Kevin Williams, and I was like, oh, they're just funny halftime things.
Yeah.
But that was the stuff everyone talked about, not my incredible play-by-play work.
What was the first thing you did where you're like, this is killer, I want to tell the world about this?
Man, Parks and Recreation. I did 4 episodes of that, and that was amazing. And it was the first one ever where I got brought back. But I'll tell you, when I moved down here, I had one goal. I watched the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm with Tony Hazel. Now a judge in Spokane. Well done, Spokane. Thank you. You've elected a great man. But I watched that show and we were both like, this is the funniest show we've ever seen. So I moved down here, my goal was to be on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And when I was on that show, the whole time, I'm like, I'm gonna wake up and this is such a great dream. And Larry David was so cool to me, and it really gave me wings. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's kind of like, getting called up and being able to get a couple hits and you're like, oh man, maybe I can do this. The whole time, I'm like, oh, the rug's gonna get pulled out from under me, and since then, I just tried to keep building.
What's the thing that you're chasing now? What's kind of the thing that's out there that you haven't quite had a chance to do that you're like, man, that'd be sweet? Yeah.
I would love to be a series regular on a in front of the camera show. I just got to do 2 episodes of a CBS show called Superior Donuts, which was a blast to do because it's a live studio audience and it takes me back to live theater days, and it's so fun. So I would really love to. I would love to do a series regular role.
So what are you most looking forward to this week?
2 wins, man. 2 wins. Let's go. Let's go. We are right there. This just feels like a team of destiny. Like, this team is so good. They are stacked, and no one's going to outcoach us.
Could not have had a better time hanging out with Big Ed. Great stories, including one from Mark Few's first day as Gonzaga head coach. Great impressions, including one of Bill Walton. You can find it all on the KREM 2 YouTube page. One interesting note, he has an injury to Mike Nilsson to thank for his career. Nilsson went down. They formed a stand-up duo. It had a ton of success, traveled around Spokane.
That's right.
That put the idea in Big Ed's head to pursue comedy, and look where it's taken him. Pretty amazing story.
So yeah, so we turned an injury into a good thing because a lot of Zag fans still look back at that Nielsen injury saying, what if?
Yeah.
Right? Well, the what if goes back to him as well. Now, something that Big Ed did was play-by-play. That's something that Kevin Harlan does for TBS. He will be on the call this week for the broadcast between Florida State and Gonzaga, and then if Gonzaga were to make it to the Elite Eight, he would be on that as well. I was able to meet up with Kevin Harlan and get a breakdown of what to expect in the matchup tomorrow, as well as what he's seen from Gonzaga over the years, because he's been doing this for quite a long time. I'm joined right now with Kevin Harlan, who will be doing the broadcast here in Los Angeles. And first off, Kevin, just what are your impressions of this Gonzaga team after talking with some of the coaches?
Well, I love him. I mean, Norvell has been so fun to watch so far, and his performance the other day was just incredible. I mean, this is a redshirt freshman we're talking about. But, you know, because Gonzaga has had this long history of success, 4 straight Sweet 16s, the championship game last year, of course, you know, I think these kids now step into a completely different culture. I guess I'm kind of a little bit engaged with that program more than others, just because I've seen them from the very beginning to what they are now.
I'm going to say, in Spokane, we're sort of stuck in Gonzaga mode. We put them on a high pedestal. But as someone who has national perspective, where does Gonzaga rank in your eyes, along with the Blue Bloods of the Duke, Kentuckys, North Carolinas?
They don't get the constant, you know, parade of All-Americans coming in there, and not that has affected the program. I mean, they made the national final last year, so I think their success speaks for itself. I think it speaks more to the kind of kid they recruit, to the way Mark coaches them, and just what is expected from one class to the other, and how you've got to wear this uniform with pride, represent this program in such a way that you know, it's attention to detail, it's listening to the game plan, it's giving the effort. That's what makes Gonzaga so special.
And then finally, to tomorrow's game against Florida State, what do you expect, or what do you think you're going to see? Not necessarily a game prediction, but just with these two teams going at it, with one being an up-tempo, one maybe not so much.
Well, I watched Mark's practice here just a couple minutes ago and enjoyed everything about that. And I watched the Florida State practice. It's a little bit, just a little, you know, the screws are tightened a little bit more. But I think that there's a significant difference in the kind of player that is playing for Gonzaga. The Gonzaga kid is more, you know, I think embedded in the game plan, knows exactly where they got to go. The Florida State is a little bit more freewheeling. They're very long, incredibly talented. They're kind of high flying all over the place. How that mixes with the Gonzaga team that has got a pretty set compass setting, that'll make for one of the more interesting Sweet 16 games we're going to see.
Well, we're very interested to see how it all plays out, Kevin. Thank you
Evan,
so much.
thank you
really
so much. Yeah,
it.
thank you.
What an awesome guy to meet with. And let me just tell you that voice is natural, all right? That iconic voice just naturally floats out of his throat, because that whole conversation, I was like, man, like, is he going to drop the act now?
Nope.
That's him.
Yeah, there's a reason he's doing what he's doing this week. No doubt one of the greats. All right, when Bulldog Madness continues, we're going to head next door to ESPN's LA studios, hanging out with Neil Everett, the SportsCenter anchor.
How's it?
Known for repping the 509. Welcome back. If you are a sports fan, there's a good chance you've watched some episodes of SportsCenter in your day. If you've watched SportsCenter, there's a good chance you've seen Neil Everett at the desk. And if you've watched Neil do his thing, you've likely heard some references to Spokane, Jack and Dan's, maybe former Spokane Indians.
America's team, Gonzaga.
Stuff along those lines. Well, we had a chance to crash the LC Grad SportsCenter set as his hometown team crashes his city. All right, Spokane's own Neil Everett, the Spokane pride runs deep with you. How cool is it to have the Zags in your town this week?
Well, you know, I figured that if they advanced, they would be, this was before the brackets were announced, and I figured they'd be west, and if they made it, they'd be across the street, so I made sure I asked in advance, much in advance, to have Thursday off so I could watch them play, and then I said I might as well take Friday too, to get prepared for Saturday, mentally prepared. So yeah, listen, I'm a huge Few fan. You know, Coach Munson, going back to there, the first college basketball game I ever saw was Coach Fitzgerald and Gonzaga way back when. I was in high school the same year as Stockton. I'd say I shut him down, but that would mean I was guarding him from the bench while he was crushing us. So yeah, you know, my pride for Spokane is immense.
So you were sweating it out like everybody else last week.
Oh, I'm a wreck. I'm like standing up, walking around the room, just, screaming at make your free throws.
Yeah, it was a problem all tournament long.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, you talk about knowing this program since the 80s, early 90s with Fitz. It's got to be mind-blowing to see what it's become the last 20 years.
Well, you know what? Now I think it's kind of expected because there's a level of excellence. So there's an expectation, and it's always manage your expectations, anything in life. And now with Gonzaga, it's like, no, we expect Gonzaga to win the West Coast Conference, and we expect them to be in the field. And then we expect them to win the first 2 games. I mean, listen, they played for the national championship last year, so all bets are off. And, Tommy Lloyd and that coaching staff and I mean, they recruit an incredible, it's the melting pot of the world, and they find these guys that are, that are great basketball players, and then they do a great job of playing together, because I think that's kind of a sense of Spokane and Gonzaga, like we are one, and it's like we're part of this community, and that's why those teams are special.
Mm-hmm. How much you enjoy just kind of thumping your chest with that 509 pride? I mean, there's not a ton of people out there that have roots like you, and obviously the platform you have now. We see it all the time on SportsCenter. You take a lot of joy in shouting out Jack and Dan's and former Spokane Indian, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, the PI. I've got to give the PI more credit now too.
Some square cut pizza and all that.
The pizza's good. In fact, my voice is on their answering machine.
Really?
Yeah. So
I have to give them a call.
Listen, I have nothing but great memories. I mean, I spent 18 years in Spokane. So, and it's a whole nother chapter of my life, but it was a great chapter. It really was.
How often do you get back?
I usually make it to Spokane once a year, maybe, and I go out to Coeur d'Alene usually.
I was going to say, what's on the itinerary? What do
well,
you have to get back
there's the Community Cancer Fund, which operates out of Coeur d'Alene, which has been a big deal for Northern Idaho. Mm-hmm. And so I like to be a part of that because of what it's doing to help fight cancer. And any reason I can get up there is a good reason for me.
Nice to see a few more Zags in your town this week. I mean, you know how they travel during the tournament.
Oh yeah, I figured it's going to be pretty heavy. Yeah. Not for nothing, but there isn't a lot else to do. Okay, let's follow the Zags.
Los Angeles, the place you want to be this week, there's no question about that. Great hanging out with Neil. Great seeing the SportsCenter studio. He's not just crazy about the Zags either. We mentioned a little bit earlier in the evening. Loves his Lewis and Clark basketball. I was going to ask him if he followed the Tigers at all. They played great during the postseason. He jumped in right away. The 3rd place finish, of course, the win over Richland. A shout out to his boy Griffin Effenberger.
Yeah, that's his dude.
Who sent Neil some LC gear. Griffin, obviously one of the best players on the team. So awesome seeing just how close those ties are still for a guy like Neil Everett that has done so much since the Spokane days came to an end.
And of course, Griffin made SportsCenter in top 10 plays with that full court shot against Ferris in the rivalry game. So very nice for Neil to always stay tight to his Spokane roots. And something that wasn't in the piece was mentioned how he hated Gonzaga Prep back in the day, but now he loves them because why? Because that's Spokane. So we transition off the fun stuff and we continue over a little bit into the outskirts of the LA area. There's a connection here with the Gonzaga basketball team, and that's Verbum Day, an all-boys high school in the Watts neighborhood. Now, the connection here goes through assistant coach Donnie Daniels, as he had some swag back in the day. He was part of some great teams in the 70s, won a city title in 71 and 72, saw some great old pictures of him with a little more hair.
Yeah, just a touch.
Just a touch, and we got to show Daniel some of that this afternoon.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the best high school teams in the CIF right there. Yeah, that's my 12th grade year. But those days never leave you, you know what I mean? You know, when you do it in Southern California, no matter where you could be in Atlanta, it doesn't matter. But when you do it in Southern California, people around there, they always remember you as a player, how your teams did and stuff like that. So it has served me well. It gave me name recognition when I got into coaching. And so, and then I was around the game for so much, you know what I mean? So it just helps you along the way.
I was going to say, Donnie, just one of the all-time good dudes. I mean, every time we talk to him, he's always got a smile on his face, always very welcoming.
They went on to win national championships after his days were done. That was a powerhouse program. He was an assistant for Utah, where he recruited another Verbum Day grad in Andre Miller, who, of course, had a fantastic NBA career. And one other nugget, Lorenzo Romar also went to Verbum Day. But he transferred out so that he could get minutes at another program.
That's funny.
That tells you just how strong that Verbum Day Eagles squad was. Very impressive. Great job, or great time visiting the school, and always, like you said, catching up with Donnie Daniels. All right, much more. Bulldog Madness coming up after the break. "24 hours until tip-off. Gonzaga back in the Sweet 16, of course, taking on Florida State. And Evan had a chance to hear from and see both teams today. Your final thoughts as we close this thing out.
Yeah, and I think Kevin Harlan gave great insight into what we're about to see tomorrow night. The spread from the fine folks in Las Vegas is Gonzaga as a 5.5-point favorite. That seems about right. I think Gonzaga is going to do well in this game. When it becomes discipline versus free-flowing, I feel like the disciplined team always finds a way, but if there's one thing that I do have to say about Florida State is that they are huge. These are some big dudes, and Gonzaga has really never faced a team like this size-wise. Mark Few said they're like South Carolina.
Well, he went one better. He said other than the John Calipari Memphis team with Derrick Rose, they haven't faced a team this physically imposing. You think about all the programs they've faced through the last couple decades. Some great ones as recently as last year's run. To put them in that type of territory says something. They are deep. There's not one guy on the team like a Keita Bates-Diop last game that really worries you, but about 15 guys that average between 6 points and a dozen. It's crazy the amount of weapons they're going to throw at the Zags tomorrow.
I'm going to say, and if you look at Gonzaga's squad, their depth, right? They got a ton of people who can score. With Florida State, they have depth a little bit less in the scoring department. 3 different players score double digits, and it goes 12.9 points, 12.8 points, 12.7 points. And then after that, it kind of bottoms out a little bit. So as long as Gonzaga sticks with the game plan and slows it down, Florida State loves to move very fast. The Zags should be sitting pretty. If it gets all helter-skelter and you got a lot of turnovers, Gonzaga is going to be in a lot of trouble. So watch turnovers. That's the big statistic.
Approximately a 7 o'clock tip-off on TBS between Gonzaga and Florida State. Zags looking to make it back to the Elite Eight. Thanks for joining us for KREM's Bulldog Madness Special. Enjoy the game, everybody.